episode 3, Ford Bronco, engine details, and how I was horribly wrong. So welcome to now episode 3 of this live. Now I was horribly wrong because I thought right behind us this was the ultimate Bronco or a Badlands. Always in between the two. I've always argued that the Badlands is actually a little bit more of the ultimate Bronco, ignoring the Raptor, which is just too hard to get your hands on. And I've always been all about the 2.7 liter. I was completely right saying that the 2.7 liter is a very reliable engine, that the engines that blew would be very isolated, and if ever the problem became, larger, there'd be a huge recall, but there was probably just going to be a singled out situation where people would, end up getting kind of contacted and told, we need to switch your engine. Or they wouldn't be able to know exactly who it is, and it'd be as soon as your engine blows, we're so sorry, here's your new engine. We've put a few aside. We knew this was going to happen. We're so sorry, but we didn't know who. So sorry for the inconvenience, and then you get your Bronco, hopefully, 2 to 3 weeks later. So I've always stood up for the 2.7 reliability. It's a fantastic engine. I still think it's a fantastic engine, and, either in a Badlands or a Wild Track or a Sasquatch Outer Banks, I was like, ultimate machines, amazing power. I've said it before, you walk into BM, you walk into Audi, you go to Mercedes, and you're going to end up having to dish out an extra $15,000 to $20,000 to go, to have miles per gallon. You're going to have to go AMG. You're going to have to go, Series S or Series M over at BMW. You add an extra M to BMW, I guess you get a BMMW. Cool, that's super clever, BMW. Add an extra letter you already have in your name. But anyways, that's how they make their performance model, and they are really cool, as much as I joke. When they're running and they're not broken, when the engines haven't blown because of an electronic failure, they're fantastic, BMW specific. I guess I'm saucy tonight again. I'll pet some more cats backwards and get my eyes scratched out. But I've dealt with BMWs before, and I've seen some that it made no sense. One of my brothers had a BMW, and this thing was as reliable as, your typical Honda Civic story. And then I had a client today who had a 2002 Honda Civic, and he just put $4,400 of mechanical repairs into it. It was a hunk of junk. It's all about, and this is why I'll say it's all about percentages, and what breaks, and the percentage that those things breaks is the true important factors behind, what is reliable and what is not reliable. But I digress. 2.7 liter. For those of you that agreed, there was a community of us that agreed saying the 2.7 liter engine, we were completely right. But how was I completely wrong and horribly wrong? Well, I test drove the 2.3, and I had always test driven it. I had test driven a manual, and I at one point in a video I did say maybe it's how I drive manuals, but I was like, it still feels like it's enough if you don't have a Sasquatch package. And I was wrong, because I drove a Badlands. Get over to it here. I even have a bit of a video for it. Sorry, that's not the Badlands I drove. Here it is. So here's the Badlands that I drove, and it was a hoot. It's a 2.3 liter 4-cylinder, 4 inline. So inline setup, super reliable. Mind you, the 2.3 liter, it's always bothered me that it's only direct injection and doesn't also have port injection. That worries me for long-term carbon buildup. That's a different story. In regards to fun, this was very fun to drive. And when I should have just looked at the specs. The performance specs, they're great. A lot of manufacturers, when they have these specs, are going to be charging you an extra, $10,000, $15,000, or $20,000 more. So it's a fantastic engine. I was wrong. I had a blast, and I'm going to have to take the time. I filmed a little, so I'm going to have to take the time to build up a video on it. But I put the pedal to the metal and was like, ho, fun times, smiles. And you know what? It was still, all about the smiles per gallon, because oddly, a Bronco 4-door, I've been comparing window sheets at least, and if you look at a Sasquatch 2.7 liter 4-door and you look at a 2.3 liter Sasquatch, there's not much difference in fuel economy. So it's not fantastic in regards to fuel efficiency because of the lift and the big tires. However, if you want, pretty decent fuel economy out of a Bronco, get an Outer Banks and keep those tires stock. The Outer Banks stock is lower, has smaller tires, and I know people that are getting what I would consider very good fuel economy for something that is less aerodynamic than a cow. And there's things like two cows wide, depends. Well, we're talking beef here, not dairy. Definitely not those little Jersey deers, but we're talking about, two big old beef heifers side by side. And this thing it's worse. It just has horrible aerodynamics, but it's all part of the appeal. It looks amazing. The Scout back in the 60s or 70s wasn't aerodynamic at all either. They looked great. The 60s and 70s Broncos looked great. Mm-hmm. So, and to anyone that says, "Oh, look at Ford, they copied Jeep with the Bronco," I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think the Bronco came out before the Jeep, other than like the military Jeep, but anyways, the Jeep name, Wrangler and whatnot, I think the Bronco came out first, but
we need to do a search.
We'll have to do a proper search. Now, that covers everything I needed to cover for the Ford Bronco. I just want to say out here, I'm wrong and said I'm not at price per. California 2A is at a dealer and they said you're not price protected. Well, if they took your driver's license, if they had you sign a build sheet, and if they had you sign a lease agreement or a purchase agreement, well, then they put in the paperwork, and the price you won't be price protected, but you will have a special rebate. So try to see if Ford customer service can let you know if they see a special rebate in the system, because they might just not know how to look it up. Or, you have got California in your name, and if you're in the California area, I know dealers out there generally want to either, have a canceled order so that they can sell it for way over MSRP. So it might be one of those things where they're like, you know what? Either we're going to sell this over MSRP and make, let's say they sell it $5,000 over MSRP versus selling to you at MSRP, but keeping your special rebate, which, might only be, depending on what your equipment and model, let's say it's about $2,500. Well, maybe they're just looking at it as, well, if you walk away from the sale, they're going to make $5,000. And if you take your sale, they're going to make an extra $2,500. Maybe they see that as a compromise. But I would call Ford customer service, because if you can get them to confirm that you do have a special rebate, it's pretty, you need to just tell them no. And I know out here we have consumer protection. The Consumer Protection Agency. So, we can actually have a government agency that can help to make sure that shady practices aren't done. Now, of course, when you order, there's a huge difference between Ford and the dealer, and we're going to cover that in the Q&A coming right up